What an amazing day. I'm wearing the shirt. Tesla is the next Tesla. This is a very appropriate shirt for today. If you're all following this, if you missed it, I'm going to give it to you right now. These are the big numbers that we got today that Tesla delivered. Q4, 308,600 vehicles delivered in the fourth quarter of 2021. That is a run rate of over one, and 305,000 delivered. That is a run rate of well over 1.2 million vehicles a year. For the year, they delivered 936,000 vehicles. This is a big number because let me just show you. First of all, Q3 they delivered 241,000. So think about that. They went from 241,000 to 308,000. That's a 67,000 vehicle increase. That's more than 25% in a quarter. And then 936,000, they delivered 500,000 in 2020. That's an 88% increase, or 87 or 88% increase in 1 year. And if that's not enough context for you, this shows that in 2017, they delivered about 100,000 vehicles, and they just delivered they 9x'd in 4 years. This is just like crazy growth. This is a $1 trillion company that just grew 88% in 1 year. This is like insane crazy. Oh, Marshall asks, how bad will media get against Elon? One of the biggest haters in the media published this. This is Laura Kolodny, one of the leaders of Tesla Q, one of the biggest voices of Tesla Q. Tesla delivered 936,000 with the fourth quarter setting a new record. She is one of the biggest Tesla haters in the media. And she couldn't help but publish this. This is like crazy big numbers. This is absolutely spectacular. Great news for Tesla. Great news for Tesla fans. The point of this video, hi Alexandra. The point of this video, Happy New Year to everybody. What I originally intended to do with this live stream was just to talk about what's coming in 2022. But I think we have to start with what just happened. What just happened was absolutely amazing. 936,000 vehicles up from 500,000. That's like an 87, 88% increase. You know, short term, like for Tesla stockholders, right? What's going to happen tomorrow? Tomorrow is Monday. It's the first day of trading after, like this number, I think Wall Street was around 268,000. So Tesla didn't beat estimates. Tesla like destroyed the estimates, murdered them, took them out behind a shed, dug a hole, buried them. Okay, this isn't the first time Tesla has done this. So what should happen on Monday is the stock should go up. Now, practical reality is Wall Street does not follow any normal rules. But look, I just want to talk about one of the things I want to talk. So my expectation is the stock should be over 1,200 on Monday. It was up to 1,200, maybe a little over 1,200 during the year, late in the year, and then Elon selling stock depressed the stock a bit because there's so much volume of selling that the market couldn't keep up, or Wall Street was skeptical or whatever. There's this theory that Elon was selling before the collapse. Elon was selling before the good news. When you look at this and you ask yourself, the thing where I'm becoming a super bull again is I'm looking at 2022. The point of this video, I want to talk about 2022. Not just for Tesla. I want to talk about SpaceX. I want to talk about Boring Company. I want to talk about Neuralink. Mostly Tesla and SpaceX. But right here, right now, here's the thing. 936,000 vehicles in 2021. Insane rapid growth. Shanghai is growing. Fremont is growing. And there's 2 new factories coming online maybe this month. Bigger and more efficient factories than Shanghai and Fremont. So they're going to ramp. They're going to start delivering Model Ys soon. And they're going to ramp fast. So I have made the bold prediction, and I don't think it's that bold, but people think I'm crazy, that this number in 2022 will be in the ballpark of 2 million. it's going to be more than 100% growth because they've got the two existing factories are still growing, and they got two factories coming online that are bigger and more efficient. So and the pace here is over 1.2 million a year, right? And you're going to add new factories in. And this number is going to grow without Berlin and Texas. This number is going to grow up. Shanghai is still growing. Fremont is growing. Fremont has a lot of room to grow with S and X in particular. The S number is 11,000 vehicles delivered, 13,000 produced. The potential for Model S and Model X, Elon said, was over 120,000 a year, maybe 150,000 a year. So this number on a quarterly basis should be 30,000, maybe even 40,000. This number up here, that should be 30, 40,000 soon. So when you get down here, this number for 2022 should be easily 100,000. We should see 100,000 deliveries of S and X in 2022. And then this number, 3 and Y, just from Fremont and Shanghai should be well over 1 million. I think that Shanghai alone could approach 1 million vehicles in 2022. It probably won't quite hit 1 million vehicles, but it could approach 1 million vehicles in 2022. And then Fremont, 600,000, you're at 1.6 million. Then you only need 200,000 each from Berlin and Texas. I'm probably getting carried away just a little bit, but I don't think so. I think, there's definitely the risk that some macroeconomic thing hits or the COVID panic expands or some other stuff happens. There's definitely a risk that something gets in the way. But if we have a relatively normal year, I think we could hit 2 million vehicles in 2022. And this trends towards, this is sort of that question, why does that matter? Well, why it matters is if you hit 2 million vehicles in 2022, then you're hitting $120 billion in revenue. And the profit numbers, the margins are going up because once you start delivering from Berlin to Europe and you're not delivering from China to Europe and you're not delivering from Fremont to Europe, you've massively reduced the cost. The cost of delivering products to customers goes down because you don't have to put them on a ship and you don't have to pay tariffs. And then, 4680 cell lines are going to start operating in Berlin and Texas too. And that's going to reduce their battery costs and improve the quality of the vehicles. And, Elon said he expected Model Y in 2022 to be the largest selling vehicle by revenue in the world. And then 2023, the largest selling vehicle by unit volume. So this is happening. This is big stuff. These are big numbers. I'm massively excited. Just to be clear, for those who haven't figured it out yet, I own a lot of Tesla stock. So, I own more than, I control more millions of dollars in Tesla stock. Not tens of millions, but millions of dollars of Tesla stock. So I think Tesla stock's going to go up 15, 20% on Monday. So I'm obviously really happy, right? Because I own a lot of, and I think Tesla stock is massively undervalued. I already think that Tesla stock should be valued at $5,000 a share. If you look at the growth path, I've got a video coming up, not right away, but there's this guy who did this video where he was talking about his valuation for Tesla, and he made absolutely no sense. I was going to make a video tearing him down. Right now, just so you know what I'm working on is Elon had an interview with Lex Friedman, and I'm breaking that down. And so my first video out of that will probably be in a day or two, will be Elon talking about crypto. And there'll be Elon talking about Starship, and there'll be Elon talking about Tesla, FSD in particular. I've got 4 or 5 videos coming on that. So a lot coming. So 2022 for me is more videos about Elon. And then I should mention, if you're watching this video now, that you're on the Locals platform, I'm going to wrap this video up, ballpark an hour. I may go a little longer. And then the next video is going to be for paid supporters only. If you are just watching for free, that's fine. But people watching for free, I believe, cannot comment, and they can't enter the chat. People who are paid supporters can comment and contribute to the chat. That's a setting from Locals. That's not my setting. Then, but I'm going to do this next video. The next video is for paying supporters only. I will record that video. I'm recording this video now. This video will appear on YouTube with some edits. The next video I'm going to record, and I'm going to publish that for Patreon supporters and YouTube exclusive content channel members. So some other people will be able to see that video. But the next video, I'm going to talk about my pod car startup. I've made some progress. I met with an attorney. I'm going to go into some detail. I've got an engineering design. I'm going to go in a little bit more detail on what that's happening. HW Feinstein says, is there any way to listen to you live while I'm doing other things like looking at Twitter? I don't know I've never really watched myself on Locals to answer that question. I believe you can leave it running, and I don't know. I don't know how that works. I wish I had a good answer for you. I know there's some criticisms of the Locals platform that I've heard. My answer to that is the YouTube platform has been censoring me. I can't get them to stop censoring me. They're censoring me when I'm doing videos about Tesla and SpaceX on my live streams. They're not censoring my edited videos. That's why I can record this and put this on YouTube later. But it doesn't make sense. Yeah, I mean, I would say, watch this on your laptop and watch this on your laptop and listen to this on your phone and do whatever on Twitter on your laptop or vice versa. But I want to stress these are monster numbers. Great story. Really, really excited about this. But what's going forward for Tesla in 2022? Well, I'm going to be making a video about FSD. Elon's latest interview about FSD. FSD is moving fast. We are going to see version 11 soon. I'm on 10.8 right now. I drive FSD beta. I'm on 10.8 now. It's pretty good. It's not there yet, but it's pretty good. All of a sudden it's getting speed bumps. It sees the speed bumps and slows down for them. That's fairly new. That's like 2 versions ago. It hit speed bumps at full speed. So I'm really pleased. I'm seeing improvements. There are little improvements here and there. And the thing is, they add up over time. And as they do more, you get more. A lot of good stuff. Yeah, Happy New Year to everybody. Thanks to everybody for watching. What we're going to see is FSD is going to accelerate. At some point, Dojo is going to come online at full stream, and the improvements in full self-driving are going to accelerate. And I believe by the end of 2022, we are going to see a robotaxi operating somewhere. P-Burn asks if I have a valuation for TeslaBot, or is it too early to speculate? No, I have a video on my YouTube channel about TeslaBot. I think TeslaBot, if TeslaBot goes where I think it's going, it makes robotaxi look small. And I think robotaxi can push Tesla to $100,000 a share. So there's kind of no limit. And I'm going to be doing a video about TeslaBot too. Elon talked about TeslaBot with Lex Friedman, so that's another video I'll be doing. 104 degrees in New Zealand. Wow. 104 degrees Fahrenheit, New Zealand. Wow, that's crazy. So, number one, we can expect FSD to make significant progress in 2022 because it's already progressing fast. But now you say Dojo, you throw in Dojo, you throw in more vehicles generating more data. There's a lot of reasons why we should expect FSD to improve fast in 2022, where we should be seeing better than the average human halfway through the year. Sarah says everyone is moving to Austin. Come on, man, you need to be there. I am thinking about moving near Canaveral. I think that people are underestimating the importance of Canaveral. For those who don't know, I'm more of a SpaceX fan. I'm a Tesla fan, and I own a ridiculous amount of Tesla stock, but I'm actually more of a SpaceX fan than I am a Tesla fan. And I think the important SpaceX stuff is actually going to happen in Canaveral. I think we're going to see more Starship launches from Canaveral than we'll see from the southern tip of Texas. I think that Canaveral is massively underappreciated by people. So there's a really good chance that by the end of this year, I will be living near Canaveral. Melbourne, Titusville, Sebastian, Canaveral, somewhere near there. I'm seriously thinking about moving up near Canaveral. I don't know if it'll happen quite that fast, but it could happen that fast. Especially if Tesla stock goes up as much as I think it will. And I will be visiting Austin frequently, but I think it makes more sense for me to live in Canaveral. Yes, Felicity, I agree. The Netflix documentary on SpaceX Inspiration Floor Flight. If you're on Netflix, search for Countdown. Great documentary, highly recommended. So, in addition to FSD accelerating, and I think we're going to see FSD become clear, and I want to say it's already better. It already navigates better than I do. I think I'm a better than average driver. I'm a better than average navigator. And I believe that Tesla FSD navigates better than I do already. It's already making better choices its lane choices are sometimes odd, and then sometimes it makes a lane choice I think is odd, and then that lane moves faster. But like you're driving in a place you're not that familiar with, and it's better at choosing what lane to be in to get off what exit, what exit you should take, what ramp you should go on, and confusing intersections, it does better than I do. And I think I'm a really good navigator and driver. So really, really striking. Are all countries afraid Elon, Tesla, SpaceX will become so powerful they will stop him somehow? The biggest risk to Tesla and SpaceX and everything is governments, but I don't think they're a threat. I don't think Tesla and SpaceX are a threat to governments. Elon understands that, and he gets along as well as he can with governments. It's particularly, with he toys with Biden and Sanders and Elizabeth Warren and stuff like that, but he doesn't mess with the regulators directly. He doesn't mess with the Chinese government directly. He's reasonably polite towards the German government. He understands the limits that they anytime they want to, they can shut Tesla or SpaceX down. He gets it. So in addition to FSD accelerating in 2022, manufacturing is going to accelerate. These numbers are going to go crazy. If you missed it at the beginning, by the way, this is 308,000 vehicles. So we had 308,000 vehicles in Q4 2021. We had 241,000 in Q3. This is a huge jump. This is 67,000 more vehicles, 67,300 more vehicles than last quarter. That's like I don't think, it might be 30%. The rate of growth is insane. And it's growing faster, and we're going to see more and more growth. We're going to see it go crazy. You've got massive increase in vehicle production coming. It's 308,000. It's going to end up being a small number. This is, we're probably going to hit 350 in Q1. Q1, the first quarter of the year, is usually the slow quarter, but Shanghai is just banging it. The demand is there. There's no demand issues. Q1 is usually slow because of demand, because the auto industry in general slows down in the first quarter of the year. But Tesla has a backlog of 6 months to a year, depending on which model they're selling. So as they expand their production, that's going to go to 350,000 in Q1. My ballpark prediction is 350,000 Q1, 450,000 Q2, 550,000 Q3, 650,000 Q4. That adds up to 2 million vehicles. 2 million is a bold number because that's a more than 100% increase on 2021. But you're adding 2 new factories that are bigger and more efficient than the 2 existing factories. I see Shanghai approaching 1 million vehicles in 2022, and Fremont approaching 600,000. That means that the Berlin and Texas factories only needed 200,000 apiece. Quick plug for the t-shirts and the stainless steel water bottle at elonbits.com. Buy the merch. So what else is coming for Tesla? Well, there's a Tesla Megapack factory that's coming online. 40 megawatt hour, 40 gigawatt hour Megapack plant coming online. You're going to see a flotilla of batteries, according to Drew Baglino, let me take this off the screen. So we're going to see a flotilla of batteries in 2022 coming from China. The lithium iron phosphate battery flow is going to skyrocket, and you're going to see a massive increase in Megapack production, Megapack delivery. You're probably going to see significant increase in solar panels and solar roofs. A lot of really good things coming. I don't think we're going to see a Tesla bot prototype in 2022. There might be one internally at Tesla. I doubt we're going to see a Tesla bot prototype. You're going to see Cybertruck. This is one of the big questions. When Cybertruck? I think we're going to see the first Cybertrucks roll out of the factory before the end of the year, but it's really hard to predict that. It's really dependent on how quickly 4680 cell production scales. If I'm correct, number one, I think we're already seeing substantial cell production out of Fremont. And I think we're going to see the Berlin and Texas cell lines come online Q1, Q2, start producing 4680s in volume. Once they scale 4680 cell production, then the 4680s in Fremont, instead of going to Texas, can go to Nevada, where they're going to be building Semi. I think they're going to be building Semi in Nevada. I think that's the plan. We'll see. So we're going to see... I don't think Semi gets produced in any significant volume in 2022. I could be wrong about that. I think they've been clear. Tesla's biggest goal, Elon has a stated goal that Model Y will be the largest revenue vehicle in the world in 2022. That's this year. That means they got to produce a lot of Model Ys. I think we're going to see 1 million Model Ys this year. Right? We get 1 million Model Ys. We get 700,000, Model 3s, S and X. maybe it's more than 1 million Model Ys. I don't know how they're going to get there, but they're going to get there. You're going to see this crazy amount of Model Y production coming online. And then 2023, it's going to be the largest selling vehicle in the world by unit volume. It's monster growth. So those factories are a big deal. The Megapack is going to be a big deal. Powerwall is going to be a big deal. We're probably going to see a lithium iron phosphate Powerwall. I think there's a recognition in Tesla that Powerwall does not need to be nickel-based cells. That's a lot of advantages to being lithium iron phosphate. So as that flotilla of batteries from China comes with lithium iron phosphate, will they start producing lithium iron phosphate in the US and Europe? Maybe. I think there's a lot of plans for that. So a lot of great stuff happening. I want to hit some Q&A. This is from local supporters who had questions before. Rebel 1996, how is this scam story not being fact-checked? It's implying you could just change to the Lucid and get one. Mercedes EQS, I think the underlying story here is that Mercedes is selling its EQS, and local Mercedes dealers are charging a markup of like $50,000 to buy a Mercedes EQS. I think the EQS is about $100,000 MSRP, but the dealers are charging an extra 50 grand. I don't know how this story is not being fact-checked, but I'm not a big fan of Inside EVs. I actually stopped following them on Twitter. I may have even blocked them on Twitter because there's just a lot of spam junk coming out of that account. Sarah asks, looking beyond 2023, will Elon rent or own the land on which he establishes the Mars colony, or is that even a consideration in the grand plan? I think Elon's goal is to be the transportation network that gets people to Mars. I don't know how much Elon is planning on, because this is something that I'll be covering in a video in the near future, because he talked about Mars with Lex Friedman. Rex was asking what kind of government would be on Mars. You know, Elon said Martians should determine the future of Mars, and I think he's saying that he's not going to be a Martian. So, you know, will he go to Mars eventually? Yeah, but I don't think Elon's planning on running Mars. So I think that the idea would be that people would be able to acquire, to just declare this is my land. People would be able to go out onto the surface of Mars and pick out spots. I don't know that it makes sense for the you know, if you're establishing a colony, you're probably going to establish a perimeter and say this is the colony land, and anything outside of the colony land, go ahead and stake your claim. Right? Kind of like, what was it? Wasn't there like an incident where they like opened up Oklahoma and a whole bunch of people just grabbed 20 acres or something like that? So I forget exactly how that worked, but I would think you're going to see first people on Mars. Probably the initial astronauts on Mars will be busy setting up the colony, but at some point you're going to have a larger body of people coming to Mars, and they're just going to pick land and say, this is mine. I don't know a better way of doing it, but that's, you know, no one has an ownership stake in Mars. Crypto Kuda says, with millions of Teslas on the road, does Dojo become the traffic management system? No, Dojo is not designed to be a traffic management system. Dojo is designed to train artificial intelligence computers. So it's not designed to be a traffic management system at all. That's not the function of it. It does a lot of matrix math. That's not what it's designed for at all. And there doesn't have to be a traffic management system, really. The cars navigate the roads. If the roads become too crowded, then we need more boring tunnels. Krasden says the Artemis Accords basically say that if you put a space object there, there are exclusivity safety roads around it. So, you know, earthbound, you know, earthly rules aren't really going to apply on Mars, because the people on Mars are going to run Mars. No one on Earth is going to be able to have any significant influence over what happens on Mars once Mars is going. It's too far. You know, if you imagine when the King of England decided he wanted to control the colonies across the Atlantic Ocean, how hard that was and how it failed. Now you got to control what's happening on the Martian colony that's, you know, 4 light minutes to 20 light minutes away, and a, you know, minimum 3-month journey to get a person there. Human governments on Earth are going to have no say over what happens on Mars. It's just practically impossible. Marty asks, how difficult do I think it will be for Cybertruck to ramp? Could there be more than one production line in Austin? I think there will be some initial challenges ramping because it's such a different vehicle design. I was lucky enough to talk to Franz von Holzhausen, who is the designer of Cybertruck and the designer of Tesla vehicles in general. And I specifically asked him about Cybertruck, and you know, it's such a radically different design that, yeah, there's going to be some challenge in ramping production. They're still working. I think they haven't finalized the design. I think the design is set up to be easier to manufacture. There's no paint shop, so that saves a lot. the exoskeleton design should be easier to build than the typical design. So a lot of good things here. Marshall, I agree with you, Marshall, completely. Oh, and I do think there will be more than one production line in Austin. I think the initial goal for Cybertruck was 250,000 to 300,000 a year, but it's very likely they're going to aim for 1 million a year 2024. Like, they won't hit 1 million in 2023, but I think 2024 they're going to be gunning for 1 million a year. Because F-150 sells 1 million a year. And it's a better truck than an F-150. So, as long as they can produce enough battery cells, why not? Cybertruck is going to be a monster product. I have 2 on order, just to full disclosure. Marshall says Starship now with 9 engines, 6 being vacuum. Will this speed transport time to Mars? Absolutely. Absolutely, Marshall. That is dead on what I think is going on with Starship going to 9 engines. The 6 engines for vacuum. That is very, very clearly the purpose is to speed transport time to Mars. That my understanding is if you're launching from Earth orbit to get to Mars, let's say you refuel the ship to launch from Earth orbit. Depending on what orbit you're in and depending on what your ship is, I think generally speaking, the expectation is it's going to be a 3 to 6 month trip, and most people expect it to be a 6-month trip from Earth to Mars. And 18 months on Mars and then a 3 to 6 month trip back. But if you go from 3 vacuum engines to 6 vacuum engines and their Raptor 2s are more powerful engines, then I think we're going to see the travel time drop to the 3-month window. And that the quicker you can make the trip, the less radiation that the astronauts are exposed to, the less arduous the journey is for the astronauts. So it's really important, if you can, to get that trip time down. So I wonder if they need the 3 sea-level engines. I'm not sure what the rationale is for having the 3 sea-level engines. I don't think the sea-level engines are useful on Mars. They're only useful if you're bringing the ship back to land on Earth. I would not be surprised to see a version that had 9 vacuum engines. And I think that might make a lot of sense. Stretch the tanks so you can get more fuel, reduce the payload, or just get rid of the 3 engines and you have less mass. But the engines don't weigh that much, so I think a version of Starship that doesn't have sea-level engines, that's not intended to come back to land on Earth, could make a lot of sense. Mars is essentially a vacuum. It's a very thin atmosphere, so you wouldn't need sea-level engines for Mars either. So it's interesting. It's interesting. All right, let's go to the next question. There was a question from Crazy Dave. Do I have an opinion about the percentage of factory production space, Houston and Berlin, I think you mean Austin and Berlin, to be used for current, planned, and future EV models, thinking there may be extra production space and plant capacity to grow into for proposed models that are not yet revealed? Or will these future models warrant a new production plant to allow the existing production capacity to be utilized for current and upcoming models like Cybertruck and the Semi? Very good question. Thank you, Crazy Dave, for the question. So, first of all, again, it's Austin and Berlin, not Houston and Berlin. I'm guessing either a typo or just a mistake. One thing that people need to understand is that with front and rear castings and structural battery pack and the improved paint shop and no paint shop for Cybertruck, I believe that the amount of space used to produce a vehicle is shrinking. For future models, if you're talking about the battery day vehicle, I think it's pretty clear that Elon envisions the battery day vehicle produced in a different building. I think that Elon is shooting for something. The factory might actually have a smaller footprint, but the key is a high velocity. The battery day vehicle will be built in a factory that is designed to spit out vehicles at high velocity. That the pace of producing cars will go up, and that's an important feature. Rick says you will want to live underground on Mars. Elon disagrees with you. I thought underground on Mars makes more sense. Elon seems to think that you just build a structure and you put about a foot of Martian regolith, dirt from the Martian surface, on the roof of the building, and that should be enough to protect you from radiation. I think both will probably happen. I think we will see underground stuff on Mars, and we will see structures on the surface of Mars. If you check my channel, on my YouTube channel, I have a video talking about how you might do loop tunnel. So, and if you do it right, you can simulate 1G in the loop tunnel, so people might sleep on the loop tunnel so they get exposed to 1G every day, so they don't lose their hardiness for Earth gravity. I think there's a lot of interesting stuff there, but and of course, if you're underground, you're protected from radiation, and it's probably easier to make it airtight if you do it underground. So, I mean, Rick, I think you make a lot of sense, but Elon is not talking that way, and I think Elon is smarter than I am. So, number one, getting back to Crazy Dave's question, number one, I think that a factory the size of Giga Texas, if you have two factories that are the same size and one is doing front and rear castings and structural pack, and one is doing rear castings only and normal battery pack and normal front, I believe that the front and rear casting vehicle takes up a lot less space to produce. And then you add in the new paint shop is more efficient on space as well, and the battery production is more efficient on space. And what you end up with is you're able to squeeze more production into the same factory. And then the next challenge is, can you increase the rate that vehicles are produced, the velocity at which they come out? So instead of one coming out a minute, you have one coming out every 15 seconds or one coming out every 30 seconds. Merch at elonbits.com. Got to pitch the merch. But yeah, I think if you're talking specifically about, I think the Cybertruck will be in the existing structure. Semi, I thought they were going to produce semi at the Gigafactory in Nevada. I could be wrong about that. I think I've seen both scenarios set forth. I think it makes sense to produce semi in Nevada, but it's hard to predict what's happening. Everything's going to Austin, it seems like, for Tesla. So, but battery day vehicle, I see a totally new building, and I don't know what that design is going to be. And Elon was asked about that by Sandy Monroe, and Elon kind of put it off. And, they need the engineering talent that's busy ramping Model Y and that will be busy ramping Cybertruck to devote their energy to, okay, how are we going to build the next generation factory? And originally, I think we were going to see that factory in 2023, but with all the delays, I think we're going to see the battery day vehicle pushed to 2024. We're going to hear about the battery day vehicle factory late 2022 is my guess. That factory is going to be built in 2023. There's going to be one in Austin, one in Shanghai, and one in Berlin. That's my prediction, assuming that Berlin doesn't disappoint so much that Tesla decides to go somewhere else. It's interesting. Viv, who used to be known as Falcon Heavy, just tweeted that she's going to be moving to Amsterdam. So I wonder if the battery day vehicle might be produced in Holland, and instead of Berlin. With all the hassles they've been getting in Berlin, maybe she's in Holland for a reason. Interesting theory. Sarah says everyone's going to Austin. Everything's going to Austin, but you, Warren. I'm telling you, people are underestimating people. Let me talk about SpaceX for a minute. So what's coming for SpaceX in 2022? We're going to see roughly 12 orbital launches for Starship in 2022. We're going to see Falcon 9 launches increase in 2022. They're getting better at doing Falcon 9 launches. We're going to see Starlink launches increase. We're going to see Starlink roll out to more people. I'm already thinking, if I move near Canaveral in 2022, I'm probably going to want to get a Starlink on the property I'm going to buy. I already have another property. I probably should order Starlink now for my existing property. We'll see about that. I may need to order Starlink. So we're going to see Starlink ramp. We're going to see, millions of people using Starlink by the end of 2022. We're going to see Falcon 9 launches increase. We're going to see Starship. Elon was calling it about 12 orbital launches. I think he's understating that. I think he's sandbagging. We're going to see more Starship launches in 2022. We've already heard or seen that they've started building the orbital launch platform for Starship at Canaveral. One of my goals early this year, Kara, if you're still watching, one of my goals early this year is we're going to get on a boat. We're going to go off Canaveral and we're going to see if we can get a view of the orbital launch platform off Canaveral. I'm going to see if we can get a view of them building that, because I haven't seen anybody with cameras on that yet. So I want to take a boat ride and go take a look at that. We were just up in Canaveral day before yesterday. We were just in Canaveral briefly. We're on the beach just south of Jetty Park. We went into Jetty Park. Jetty Park is just south of the launch facilities in Canaveral, just on the wrong side of a canal. So I definitely want to go head up there, get on a boat, see if we can get a look at where the orbital launch platform is being built. That's coming. So I think we may see orbital launches from Canaveral before the end of the year. It's not just going to be Starbase. Starbase, Texas, for those who aren't familiar with it, the southern tip of Texas. SpaceX has a facility in a place that used to be and is arguably still called Boca Chica. And there's a facility, you check my channel, I've talked about this a bunch of times. So they're planning orbital launches from Starbase, but I think we're going to see orbital launches from Canaveral as well. And the Canaveral area of the Space Coast just has a lot more infrastructure to support SpaceX activities than the southern tip of Texas. Even though the southern tip of Texas is nice, great Mexican food, the population is too small. The infrastructure is not there to support what they want to do at the scale they want to do it. Canaveral has a lot of infrastructure to back it up. They have a whole population that built up to support the space industry. And now the space industry is going to grow again. And the people at the Canaveral area support the growth of launches. And the people in the southern tip of Texas are not quite so sure they like all this launch stuff going on. Based on my visit, our conversations with people there. A. Casano asks, will Russia's spread of low orbit junk reduce Starlink growth? No. I think that that's an overestimated problem. I don't think that Russia has done that much with low orbit junk. I think that's probably not as much of a problem as you think. Probably most of the stuff you're talking about will fall into the Earth's atmosphere quickly. I haven't heard about any indication that it has a significant long-term impact on anything like Starlink. And for those who don't know, Starlink is SpaceX's network of satellites to provide internet connections, and those satellites travel in a fairly low orbit, and anything in an orbit that low the orbit will tend to decay and fall in the Earth's atmosphere quickly. So low Earth orbit tends to be safer from, people know it's called the Kessler syndrome. If enough junk gets in space, there's a fear that you won't be able to have anything done because there's too much debris in space and it won't work. I don't think that's going to be an issue because the low Earth orbits clear fairly quickly. Marshall asks, why do I think FAA is slowing Starship? Environmental review sounds fake. I haven't heard anything about the FAA slowing Starship. I don't think SpaceX is really ready to do orbital launch quite yet. They are still working on engines. They're still working on things. When I was down at Starbase, they still had engineering work to be done. I think they're getting close and they will be ready soon, but February or March at the earliest for orbital Starship launch. I'm hoping they time the orbital Starship launch so it's close in time to the Tesla Gigafactory opening event in Austin so we can kill two birds with one stone on the trip. But that's overly optimistic. P. Byrne asks, what about thoughts on Chinese getting upset over Starlink satellite interference with their rockets? I think that's getting overblown. I don't think the Chinese were upset. They filed a mild complaint with the UN. Not terribly important. I don't think that's a big deal. So, all right, let's move. So SpaceX is going to do orbital launches of Starship. We're going to see Starship manufacturing improve. We're going to see Raptor. I mean, the big challenge, if you watch the Lex Friedman interview, the biggest challenge that Elon's talking about now is getting the rocket engines manufactured in volume. The Raptor 2 engines are hard to manufacture, and they got to work on that. And I haven't seen Elon's tweet yet, so I'll see that. I'll have to see that later, Alexandra. Raptor engine production. That's the big challenge. That's the big engineering challenge for SpaceX right now, is getting Raptors produced in volume. If they can nail Raptor engine production, then they can nail getting more Super Heavies and more Starships ready to launch. It was a really interesting detail in Lex Friedman interview. I'll be talking about this in my video, that the decision to catch the Super Heavy booster as it falls out of the sky, as it lands, rather than having it land on landing legs, means that they need less mass on the booster to facilitate landing, and that means the booster is more effective at launching larger payloads into orbit. More delta V because you've got less mass on the booster. Really, really brilliant stuff. Marshall says China is planning 10,000 satellite web service to compete with Starlink. You know, people can plan all they want. You got to be able to get your satellites into orbit, and you got to have your satellites working well. And, you know, there's a really tough, I think that China would probably be more likely to find a way to work with, that China and Elon will find ways to work together rather than China bothering to launch 10,000 satellites. And, you know, with a modern orbital technology, the modern space technology, they can set their orbits up so they're not going to crash. People have no sense. Think about this. If there were 10,000 cars on the surface of the Earth and there were no ocean, so it was just one big solid globe, and they were all driving around randomly, they would never see each other. Space is huge, okay? Each orbital shell, and you know, that's one level. You go out, you know, to a 100-kilometer orbit. Well, you probably go higher than that. Let's say you go to a 200-kilometer orbit, a 200 1 kilometer orbit, a 202 kilometer orbit, you're never going to hit each other. Right? I mean, there's so many levels of orbits you can go out to. Just like when Elon talks about Boring Company, you can go arbitrarily deep. You can make your orbits arbitrarily far from each other in terms of distance from the surface of the Earth. So I don't. China does not have the launch capacity to launch 10,000 satellites unless they launch them on Starship or Falcon 9. They don't have the launch capacity to do it. The technology behind the satellites, Elon said that the next generation Starlink satellite, I think it's significantly larger, but it's going to have a lot more capacity. It's going to be able to serve a lot more customers. There's a lot going on there in the tech that's really hard to copy. And there's this massive first mover advantage that Starlink is going to have. I made at least one video about this. That once Starlink gets its network up and running, anybody else to come along, why would I choose to use Amazon's, Jeff Bezos has one, I forget what it's called. They have a OneWeb, something like that. Why would somebody use a competing satellite network when the Starlink network's better? Right? What would the other competing company have to do to get people to switch from Starlink to their network? You'd have to be better service at lower cost. Well, how are you going to get there when they have 10,000? Starlink is going to have 10,000 satellites up soon, within a couple of years. So the fewer satellites you have, the harder it is for you to offer competing quality service. The higher your launch cost, the harder it is for you to compete with SpaceX on cost. Just way too many problems there. Let me talk briefly about topics other than Tesla and SpaceX. I want to talk about the Boring Company. So I live in Broward County, Florida, Coral Springs, Broward County, Florida. Fort Lauderdale, which is the large city about 30 minutes from me, is going to be doing a Boring Company tunnel system from downtown Fort Lauderdale to the beach at Las Olas. Las Olas Boulevard is sort of the main strip that has all the restaurants and hotels and shops. Kind of like a strip where people hang out and show off their cars and stuff like that. So Las Olas Boulevard is going to be getting this probably this year. I mean, the city council has already rejected the competing bids because they didn't meet the standard. They're negotiating with the Boring Company to go forward, and it's not that long of a tunnel. So I think we're going to see Boring Company at least get started on the tunnel, the Las Olas Loop soon, and maybe faster. Miami's been in talks with Boring Company about the Brickell Tunnel to replace the Brickell Bridge. I think we may see significant Boring Company activity in South Florida, at least plans for what's going to happen. I think we might see the Las Olas Loop before the end of this year. We may see the beginnings of tunnels in Miami before the end of this year. The big one is Las Vegas. They're going ahead. The Las Vegas Loop is going to be spectacular. I've ridden the Las Vegas Convention Center Loop, but the larger Las Vegas Loop is going to be spectacular. It is going to be every other city is going to see that because they do conventions in Las Vegas and government officials go to conventions in Las Vegas and they're all going to experience this and they're going to say, not for the people in their cities, but for their own personal selves, they're going to want this in their cities. So this is going to accelerate. If you ever get a chance to invest in the Boring Company and you can get me in on it, let me know. I think the Boring Company is going to be the biggest company in the world. It's going to be bigger than Tesla. It's going to be bigger than SpaceX. The potential for Boring Company to improve life on Earth and make massive revenue for Boring Company is just like absolutely insane. It's gonna be crazy. This is gonna be monster. So watch for Boring Company. Austin, Texas, San Antonio, Texas, some tunneling in California. We're probably gonna see more conversations with more cities over the course of the year. With more, but once that Las Vegas Convention Center loop starts operating at some limited scale beyond the convention center and people start seeing how valuable this is, I don't think they'll finish the Las Vegas loop this year. We'll see how much progress they make. I mean, they should be able to finish it this year if everything gets out of the way, but that might be a stretch. Sarah, they have talked about it in Austin. They've talked about it in San Antonio. I don't think they need to connect Austin to San Antonio, but I think it's going to go, what is it, 35? Whatever the main highway that goes down the center of Austin, that's basically a parking lot whenever there's any traffic. Running tunnels under the main drag in Austin from Tesla Gigafactory to the state capitol, University of Texas, Austin, Lot of lot of potential in Austin for a Boring Company tunnel system. San Antonio has the same needs. Pretty much any city in the world has bad traffic, and Boring Company can do a lot. Oh, connect San Antonio to Austin to Dallas. That would make a lot of sense. You got to get Houston in there, make the triangle. I don't think we need San Antonio. For those who don't know, San Antonio and Houston are the closest cities to the southern tip of Texas. I don't think they need tunnels to do that because there's already good roads and not a lot of traffic. So a great triangle from San Antonio through Austin to Dallas and Dallas to Houston and Houston to San Antonio would make a lot of sense. Maybe even Houston to Austin. Separate leg. There's so much potential. And Sarah's correct. Austin is happening. I guess briefly, I'll just mention this. Brian Roshetsky is one of the guys who flies drones over Giga Texas, and he messaged me. Check out his channel, Brian Roshetsky. Brian mentioned he has video or pictures of a SpaceX facility that is being built across the highway from the Tesla Gigafactory, and he's seen significant progress there. So SpaceX is building something big right near the Tesla Gigafactory. Neuralink is expanding. They just had an interview. Lex Friedman was interviewing Elon Musk, and Siobhan Zillis was in the room. Siobhan Zillis is a leader in. She's a big figure in Neuralink, and she was there. I think Neuralink is moving a lot of its activities to Austin, Texas. Boring Company has a big property near Sue McLean's house. What's that called? Bastrop. In Bastrop, they have this 70-acre plus property. They're working. I've been to that property. There's a lot happening. Austin's population. Austin is growing like gangbusters, and it's not just Elon's companies. Google is there. Facebook is there. A lot of companies are growing. Austin is the biggest boomtown you're ever gonna see. So I almost think Sarah, one of the reasons I'm not going is because it might get too crowded. That place is so crowded nobody goes there anymore. It's a Yogi Berra line. So I think I have more. Oh, so we have Patreon questions. This is a question from my Patreon supporters. Would really appreciate, just really quick again, thanks to the Vasa Law Firm in Sweden, all my Patreon supporters, thanks to my local supporters, thanks to my YouTube channel supporters. Any support you can give is greatly appreciated. So Patreon questions. AK asked, whatever happened to my soundproof doghouse idea? So for those who aren't familiar with this, in the house where I used to live, we have a dog that hates thunderstorms and fireworks. And the idea was to create a structural doghouse that would mitigate the noises from thunderstorms and fireworks. And we made an alpha prototype, and it didn't work. It actually made some frequencies louder inside. We tested it with microphones. It did not work. I think there's a way of doing it to make it work, but it's really hard to make it. Basically, you need a lot of mass to mitigate the low frequency sounds. So it's really hard to make that work. Thank you to Yi Zhao for the congratulations on Kara. What do I think is the likelihood of a terrorist attack on any of the gigafactories? Am I being too paranoid? That seems really unlikely. I don't know how a terrorist attack would work. The gigafactories are really, really big. I mean, they're just literally, Giga Texas is about a mile long. So where does the terrorist attack hit? What do they know what part of the factory to hit? What's the goal? Are you hitting the offices? Are you hitting the factory line? Are you hitting the cell line? Why would a terrorist attack a gigafactory? I mean, what terrorist group is upset about electric vehicles? I don't see it. I don't see why. I mean, the biggest threats to Tesla and SpaceX are government. And you could argue that governments are terrorists, but I think you're referring to something different. So I don't think that's serious. Oh, Sarah points out Samsung is building a huge chip factory too in Austin, Texas. There's so much going on in Austin, Texas. So I think I answered the Patreon questions, and then I had question from a YouTube channel supporter. YouTube channel member David says, would love to hear about any residential home building concepts you've been looking at, and particularly if you give any thought to fire resiliency. Recent home was lost in Colorado. Highlight the need to build with inert, non-toxic materials. So for those who follow my YouTube channel, I'm talking about, and I've decided to delay it a bit, solar farm apartments. I'm not so much worried about fire. I think that the places that I would build, I think most places where you're going to build, you're going to have low fire risk. So I think housing designed to deal with, let's say forest fires, that's really specific to places that have high risk of forest fires, and I don't think that's a big issue. I think that there's really a lot of potential for I think the biggest challenge in today's housing world is rents. That rents are too high. The rent is too damn high. For those who followed my governor campaign in 2010, one of the other candidates, Jimmy McMillan, had a tagline: "The rent is too damn high." I'm paying $1,550 a month for a 1-bedroom apartment. Now, this is a pretty nice apartment. It has a garage, so I can charge my Tesla in the garage and protect it from the exterior, the external world and all that. But I think my vision is that we need to build low-cost housing. Not, to be clear, there's federally regulated terms, low-income housing, and there's other terms. I use low-cost housing in particular because there are federally regulated terms that I don't want to get into. I just want to build housing that's inexpensive. And my vision is for building homes off-grid with not solar roof like Tesla solar roof tiles, but solar roof design, but make it like ultra low cost to build so that you can do apartments. My vision, which I've talked about before, is basically it's an 800 square foot apartment that has an 18 kilowatt solar roof, and you have a row of them, right? So if you can do 1,000 in one development, you've got an 18 megawatt solar power plant, and you're providing housing, and then you make the apartments energy efficient so that you're not using that much electricity, so you have extra electricity that you can use. And if you can put that electricity into use, what would you use it for? Well, if you're off grid, you're not feeding the grid. I think feeding the grid is actually not an optimal use for this because you're not going to make that much money feeding the grid. I think optimal uses for it might be robo-taxis. It might be condensing water from the air to provide water to your off-grid location. It might be producing methalox, methane fuel and liquid oxygen for Starship using the Sabatier process. I think there's a lot of potential, a lot of different ways to use that excess electricity, and you could hook it up to the grid, or you could serve your neighbors who are also off-grid. There may be others who are off-grid. Sarah asks, Warren, if you could ask Elon one question, what would it be? I have a video questions for Elon where I have so many questions. There's no way I could narrow that down. I would probably ask Elon about my pod car startup, what he thinks about the idea of a single passenger electric vehicle, or single passenger electric robo-taxi. I think that's the future. I don't think I could narrow myself to one question if I had Elon's time, but I have thought about that question, and I have so many questions I would probably just collapse. So Felicity says, a bit off topic, but while watching the Netflix documentary Countdown, I was amazed at how young the SpaceX employees are with great levels of responsibility, many aged under 30. Yeah, I think one of the employees featured was 26 years old. SpaceX and Tesla are driven by employees who are fairly young, who work insane hours. There is a sacrifice of work-life balance in favor of work. What's going on at these companies. This is, I have a t-shirt, Innovate with Extreme Urgency. This is what I think makes Tesla special, what makes SpaceX special, what makes the other companies that think they're going to be the next Tesla, why they're not the next Tesla, why they're not the next SpaceX, because they're not innovating with extreme urgency. And taking young employees who are really, really smart, who have demonstrated excellence, one of Elon's goals, show how have you demonstrated excellence, taking hardworking, innovative employees and getting them to come in and work really, really hard. Good question, Sarah. Sarah, I might get you involved in a video. We're going to talk about this topic. So, yeah, and also veterans. SpaceX uses, when I was down at Starbase, I met some SpaceX employees, a lot of veterans at Tesla. Veterans are used to working really long hours on a really challenging mission with low pay. And at SpaceX and Tesla, they get to work really long hours on a really challenging mission for high pay. So, Sarah says, what is Elon doing within his companies to encourage human reproduction? I have not seen Elon doing anything about reproduction within his own companies. That's a good question. I'm working on a concept. I'm probably going to be doing this on Clubhouse, recording it and putting it on either YouTube or on here on Locals. It might be too controversial for YouTube. How do you encourage? I mean, that's a big question. How do you encourage human reproduction? Because for those who don't know, there's this concern if there's this thing called the fertility rate or the birth rate. If the average woman has 2 children, I think it's actually the number's 2.1. It's called the replacement rate. the average woman has about 2.1 children, then the population hits steady state. If you have a long period of time where the average woman has 2.1 children, then the population is flat. It doesn't grow, it doesn't shrink. If the birth rate falls below 2 per woman, then the population will start declining. And the lower it falls, the lower the birth rate falls, the faster the decline. So there's this perception that a lot of people have that the earth is overpopulated and we need to cut birth rates. And this is Malthusian. It's been proven wrong anytime anybody makes a prediction. Oh, Malthus said, we're gonna produce children faster than we produce food and everybody's gonna die. And then food production increased rapidly. The carrying capacity of the planet is much higher than 10 billion people. It's much higher than 20 billion people. We're barely using that much of the Earth's surface for humans. Most of the Earth's surface is not populated. But the alternative to overpopulation is if the birth rate falls below 2, then ultimately the human population goes to 0. And if you're like Elon and you're like me and you think humanity is worthwhile, and you think that human consciousness is something important, then we need to increase birth rates. Extending life expectancy does not solve the problem, because if people die, you need more people. Extending life expectancy to 150 years just slows things down, and it's not necessarily that easy to extend life expectancy to 150 years. Merch at elonbits.com. I love this stainless steel water bottle. I had two. I gave one to a little girl who is a pediatric cancer survivor. She just got to talk to Haley Arsenault from the Inspiration 4 mission. I met with her and her family at the Murakami in Delray Beach. We had a nice time together. I can't think of their last name. My brain doesn't work well. Sorry about that. It's on my Instagram. I put it on Instagram. I don't think I put it anywhere else. Maybe I put it on Twitter too. Really, the Glazer family. The Glazer family. Really nice time. So, we're approaching an hour. I have an hour and a half, I believe. Let's see if it tells me how much time I have left. Yeah, I have another half hour on this. I'm probably going to wrap this up fairly soon. I don't think I talked about Neuralink yet, so let me talk about Neuralink really quick. Neuralink is, for those who don't know, Elon Musk's startup company that's doing brain implants that currently they can, a monkey can control the video game Pong with his mind. The short-term goal is to enable human patients who are paraplegics or quadriplegics or quadriplegics or tetraplegics who cannot currently control a mouse or keyboard with their physical body, to enable them to control a mouse and potentially a keyboard with their mind. That if you can enable, and that improves their life dramatically because they're able to do more. And ultimately, can you take that person and route around the break in the spine and implant a Neuralink below the spinal break so that they can regain control of their own muscles? That's one use. There are many brain malfunctions and spinal malfunctions that can be addressed. Thank you, Marshall. There are many brain functions and brain diseases and other disorders that can be addressed by Neuralink. So what's happening with Neuralink in 2022? Very, very likely we're going to see a human trial in a quadriplegic, tetraplegic, or a few quadriplegics and tetraplegics this year, soon. And the results are very, very likely this will succeed. They were able to do it with a monkey. No, more than one monkey. I think no reason why they won't be able to do that with a human. Question will be, how much can they accomplish with humans? And then what do they learn from the initial human trials? How can they make the Neuralink better? A lot of potential for this to be a game changer for humanity, for for those who are most vulnerable in humanity, to make life better for quadriplegics, tetraplegics, people with brain diseases, anything from hearing disorders, the blind people, helping the blind to see, addressing Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, so many different brain disorders, sleep disorders. Siobhan Zillis said, what if I just want to get a good night's sleep? Maybe Neuralink will help people get a good night's sleep. There's so much potential for this. And check my channel, SHIVON. You can see Siobhan's video. I did a video exploring, Siobhan did this video talking about what Neuralink was doing. I think that's actually one of the best videos I've done. It didn't get a lot of views, but I think it's one of the best videos I've done. Search my channel, my YouTube channel for Siobhan, SHIVON. Watch that video. Listen to how she talks about Neuralink. There's probably more useful information, more interesting information about Neuralink in her video than anything anybody else has done. So great stuff. Okay, so I'm going to wrap this up now. I want to thank everyone for participating. Particularly want to thank my local supporters, the people who pay, the people who are in the chat, people who are able to comment. YouTube has made it difficult for me to do live streams on YouTube, and I've decided not to do live streams on YouTube until YouTube can assure me that I'm not going to be demonetized for doing videos about Tesla and SpaceX, which is no reason to demonetize me. Until that happens, I'm probably going to continue doing them on Locals, and frankly, I'm enjoying the Locals platform more and more, and I'm probably just going to keep doing them on Locals anyway. I am recording this, so this will appear on YouTube probably in a couple days. I'm about to start the next video, which is for supporters only. I'm going to give inside details about my pod car startup. Where I'm going to show you like some engineering designs. I'm going to talk to you about the future financial plan for the company. Where it's going. So that's coming up next. So if you are on here now, check my Locals page and you'll see the next video starting any minute. Thanks very much for watching, and thank you again to everyone who supports this channel.